right, guys, welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the coverage of Eternal Weekend this weekend, or your experience playing at the event. I had the pleasure of doing commentary for 7 rounds of Legacy, and yeah, I'm here to check out the deck lists of whoever placed 9 and 2 or better. I'm gonna try and look at the list, the usual breakdown of anything interesting, what takes down the event, what kind of reactions can the metagame do with this fresh data, and yeah, just overall my reaction to it. So I actually missed the tail end of the tournament. I know who ended up winning, but I'm actually not sure about who lost the quarters, who lost the semis, etc. So that is also to say that I'm not too worried about if you were 9th on breakers or 8th on breakers or won your quarterfinals or lost your quarterfinals. These guys going 9 and 2 or better, they were right there. So one match in either direction is not going to change anything when it comes to my evaluation. And with that being said, let's get into it. So these standings on your screen right now, that's the standings before starting the top 8. So this is pretty cool to see. 3 copies of Mystic Forge combo as the first, second, and third seed. Nobody really expected that. The deck, I expected this deck to be something like a 5 or 6% deck at the tournament. And I want to talk a little bit about Mystic Forge and kind of how this weekend lined up perfectly for the deck. So maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, Mystic Forge broke out on Magic Online as a deck that took down a challenger or two. I remember losing to it in the finals maybe like a month ago. And then, you know what happens when a deck takes down a tournament? It gets played a lot, and then what happens is the metagame reacts. So the metagame back then reacted with playing Null Rods in your sideboards, playing, Greens on Zenith decks with access to Collector Oof, even main decking the Oof. So that kind of pushed Forge out of the out of the format. And what made room for it to begin with was the dominance of Reanimator, because now the format had to worry about the graveyard a lot to shut down combos, but all of a sudden they had to worry about artifacts and permanents winning the game. So once that was done, that paved the way for Oopsol spells. Oopsol spells preying on what kind of graveyard hate people were using against Reanimator, Pharamacabre, Ghost Vacuum, and those cards turned out not very good against the Jack-O-Lantern and the Blue Shuffle that I keep, Journey to Memory, I think. Can't remember the name. Anyway, Oopsol spells was able to circumvent graveyard hate despite being a graveyard deck and win some tournaments. Then people started adapting to that, which made room for Sneak Attack. Sneak Attack took down the recent Magic Online Showcase Challenge, and then all of a sudden, are we going to worry about graveyard, spell-based, anti-big monsters? And while people were trying to figure that out, turns out Mystic Forge came out to play this weekend. So I just wanted to paint that little bit of small picture of the cycle of different combo decks that you have to worry about and how picking a certain deck for a specific weekend can end up paying you off big time. So I believe Calvin Wallace ended up taking down the event. We can start with his list here. So, looking down the list, somewhat standard, except that one copy of Candelabra of Taunos, which is on paper a win more card, but could be very, very crucial in the actual games. It does not line up well against, the Null Rods of the world, the Oof, the Karns, and the Mirror. But other than that, seems pretty sweet. I love the mana base here. Even trimming a single copy of Saga to go down to 19 lands, because 20 lands, that sure is a lot. Looks like Kelvin is depending on Portable Hole and Beseiju out of the sideboard to get rid of pesky hate cards. I will mention that Planar Nexus is a filter land that allows you to cast spells. So that could come up in grindy games. Let's see if there's any noticeable differences in the other Mystic Forge decks. Looks like this player is opting for Needle and Soul Guide Lantern in the kind of flex slot, Ursa Saga flexibility toolbox. A couple of Mindbreak traps even in the sideboard. So John is basically saying, well, I'm the combo deck here, so I don't want to die fast. And when I have made sure that I don't die fast, I'll make sure that you die fast. So pretty cool thing here. We also saw Liquid Metal Coating do some good work with Karn on camera. And yeah, overall, Karn is just the mirror breaker, so pretty sweet. And this list looks like it's a bit heavier on the actual card Mystic Forge, and it's sideboarding some interactive stuff like Disruptor Flute and Dismember. Dismember killing Oof is pretty big. Also, we see a copy of Phyrexian Metamorph here. a vintage stable when it comes to copying your own one ranks and keep that chain going. Also note this mana base is a lot different here. Blast Zone and Cydia traders instead of you know, the Ursus Tower and Planner Nexus. So with that being said, Mystic Forge, what a strong weekend. I expect that deck to do more damage in the weeks to come, but I also expect the format to be more prepared. So whatever you prefer, I prefer being on the side of the fence that prepares for Mystic Forge, but yeah, let's see. So next up, Cephalid Breakfast. This is for sure not a deck that I had on my radar top 8ing this event. And this is an extension of, if the format is very focused on the graveyard, it's just going to be way harder for you to dread return back Athas's Oracle on average, you know, against a onboard Ghost Vacuum or the opponent holding a Pharaoh Macabre, whatever the case may be. But the power of this deck cannot be understated. We're looking at an Ursus Saga deck. We also have Nadu Winged Wisdom, so a lot more resiliency to the very fragile combo of Cephalid Illusionist and Nomads and Core. Sideboard here looks a bit all over the place when it comes to the numbers, but that's why I like categorizing the cards and saying, oh yeah, we might have some different stuff, but we can categorize it into, you know, Graveyard Hate, anti-colorless cards, anti-combo cards, etc., etc. So, awesome finish by Cephalid Breakfast. Congratulations to Max. This one is cool. So, AJ top-8ed with White, Red, Death and Taxes. So, white and red, that's the country, my country's colors when it comes to the flag. So, Danish Death and Taxes, just like back in the day. Shout out to Thomas Enevoldsen, a good friend of mine who used to run the tables with this deck. And yeah, always seeing this deck on camera always makes me think about those days. What a monster at a legacy table. This is kind of a cool list where you're trying to use a Johnny and Broadside Bombardiers for the whammy, for the peanut butter jelly combo. You get a lot of flexibility off a Recruiter of the Guard. Having access to a ton of cards is important in your 80-card deck, and then an upgrade in the equipment suite with pre-war formal wear for a grind and chainsaw for a little bit of board control. The biggest challenge with a deck like this is making your sideboard count. So that's why we see, you know, the Pyroblasts alongside the Magus of the Moon that kind of warrants the red splash. We see a couple of split up to deal with either an army of small creatures or some big ones. And then we mainly see some stuff that you can dig out with your copies of Recruiter of the Guard, getting you to a total of 5 Pharaoh Macabres effectively, right? Awesome finish. Then we have Reanimator. So going into the weekend, Reanimator was still the talk of the town, and this list is somewhat standard. We saw some wonky ones during the weekend, but this is kind of the standard one where you're trying to have it all, you know, main deck, a couple of removal spells, you still have the Wastelands, you even have the Fanatics as extra reanimation, plus mid-range Dukes. Sideboard, you're trying to address the mirror, and you try and make sure you have a serviceable mid-range deck in the face of a lot of hate. Cards like Barrowglyph, Orcus Bowmasters, and standard removal spells will make sure you can do that. Painter, awesome deck. I talked about it going into the tournament that if you are a Painter expert, chances are you're going to get a lot of free wins from the kind of lack of information or expertise on the sides of your opponents. Erlaxier, staple of, you know, any Magic format, I would even argue, decided to bring this deck and was rewarded with a top 8 finish. He decided for the version with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, the combo with, let's see, what's the name? Phyrexian Devourer, and it also doubles as Graveyard Hate, you know, shrinking Nethergoyfs even, shrinking Murktides proactively, getting rid of Uros, disrupting in the mirror, great against Reanimator. Yeah, love it. And then to run out of the top 8, we had what I believe is the Elves version of Nadu. That's what I call it anyway, because you have, you know, have your mana accelerants, you have your cradles, etc. So this is not Bant Nadu. It is Bant colors, but not Bant Nadu in that sense. This deck has some cool inevitability with Olosaurus Shepherd kind of being this uncounterable way to silence your way through an impactful turn, maybe natural order for Atraxa, maybe natural order for Nadu and go crazy, maybe even natural order for Crater of Behemoth and win the game on the spot. This deck is viable basically because people don't play sweepers these days. But then again, if this deck becomes a mainstay, all you need is some Toxic Deluges or Pyroclasm or whatever, and you'll be just fine against the deck. So another, what I would call a metagame deck. Looks like the sideboard is accounting for the graveyard as it should, and accounting for, you know, playing a bit of a normal game of Magic with slowing down with plows or consigns, depending on the matchup. Also a little bit of anti-combo here with Deafening Silence. Yeah, this is, I don't know if this player changed their name on Melee after getting to the 9th place. I think I heard that they decided to draw. Yeah, okay, we actually get that confirmed here. So drawing yourself to a 9th place is just, it doesn't feel good. So at the point we can see here in the opponent's match win, it's a 1% difference between top 8 and top 9 here. So maybe the numbers checked out while you made, shook the hand and took the intentional draw. Maybe you didn't know the math well enough. Who knows? It's mainly just to say that a draw is oftentimes a loss in tournaments like this, whether it's about making day 2 or making top 8 or making whatever threshold. So if you are fine with this outcome and you were an odds favorite, by all means go for it. But it's mainly to say that sometimes you want to take it into your own hands and actually play the game for clinching your spot. But yeah, Dimir Reanimator in 9th place, and that is also to say that if these two decks swap places, all of a sudden we have 2 Reanimator decks in the top 8, and that would be right around what would be expected. So very close margins. Esper Control here, as it's labeled, and I guess with Snapcaster Mage and pretty Planeswalker heavy, I think that name makes sense. My biggest issue with a deck like this is that while it's incredibly, fun to play, you get to play some grindy games, you get to run away with some games thanks to Psychic Frog, it's also a deck that has relatively low closing power, no Murktide Regents. So you're going to have to play the game and hold your breath for a lot of turns. And yeah, bad things can happen on those turns. And that's why I don't favor a deck like this these days. But obviously, awesome accomplishment here by Ryan. Another copy of Painter. So 2 Painters in top 11. Love to see it. This version is the One Ring version with Pyrogoyf. So a lot of 4-drops, basically borrowing a page out of the Mono Red Prison Decks book and not leaning on the Agatha Soul Cauldron. Pretty cool. Then another Death and Taxes. Basically the same version. Wow. So 2 in the top 12. That's awesome to see. Then we have Dreadnought. I had the pleasure of casting a few Dreadnought matches where, unfortunately, I didn't get to see the opponent, making a 12-12, dazing a removal spell, attacking twice, looking like a super Delver deck. But obviously, this player made it work all the way to a 9-2 finish. David Long here on another one. This is actual Bant Nadu. So this is a pretty standard deck that does powerful things. And I want to highlight this card, the Scythecat Cup. That's basically a upgrade to Bristly Bill, but actually this deck plays both of them, which is pretty interesting. The sideboard of these decks is also always like super standard when it comes to, we need some Scene of the Bullets, we need to upgrade against combo, we need to upgrade against Graveyard, and then I guess some carpets for any blue matchup. The Temur Rhinos deck was awesome to see on camera, especially the pivot into Inevitable Betrayal out of the sideboard. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Inevitable Betrayal steal something like an Atraxa or whatever, but that's kind of the point of the card, that all of a sudden your Endurance is in the main deck and your Inevitable Betrayal is out of the sideboard. They get more mileage into a format with a ton of fatties. So, awesome to see. Sultai Beans ×2. Wow, that is pretty cool. And I know Brian Koval played this deck at this tournament, so obviously some inspiration there down the ranks. This is another one of those decks where looks incredible fun to play, but I would be scared that my closing power is not strong enough to withstand a powerful format full of decks that are trying to beat you in that kind of mid to late game. But I mean, results don't lie. 9-2, incredible accomplishment here. Another copy of Mystic Forge here. Not gonna go too much into that. Ooh, this is obviously gonna be awesome for me. So I see Dimir Delver here, and it looks like a version that I for sure have recommended and have been piloting the last few weeks. So this is awesome. Shout out to John Slater. I think Delver is very well positioned if your plan is to beat something like Mystic Forge, something like Reanimator, something like other, different combo decks. You put on a lot of pressure with the 1-drops. Daze gets better, Wasteland gets better, and then it's kind of up to your sideboard how you wanna hedge. So we needed in 20th place. We need to go all the way down to 20th place to find our first Eldrazi deck, and I'm not sure what to make of it. 9-2 finish is obviously awesome, and maybe, scrolling down the next half page, we're going to have a ton of more Eldrazi decks, and the deck actually did well over the weekend. But for now, seeing the first copy in 20th place is a surprise for me. Looks like a pretty standard version. I've seen this before. 2 1 rings, 2 Once Upon a Time, 2 Null Rods, 2 Mindbreak Traps. I've laughed a bit about that before on the channel. Here we have Dimir Tempo deck. We do have the Netherglyphs for closing power. Looks like a somewhat standard version, hedging with 3 Nihil Spell Bombs against Reanimator, 3 Tamios, 2 Murktides, pretty standard numbers here. This deck is a mid-range deck in my opinion. Sometimes if you draw the Netherglyph for 2, you can kind of close out games quickly, but you will have to prepare for somewhat longer games with this deck, and it has the card quality to back it up. Then we have Esper Reanimator. Let's see what the white is actually in this deck. So with Tundra and Scrubland, I've actually played this before where I was leaning on Pest Infestation. No, that's not the name. Pest Control, rather. But these days, you know, there aren't that many Chalices and Delvers, etc. to sweep up, so I'm not going to do it these days for the splash. I think it hurts the mana quite a bit. Looks like Swords to Plowshares, the removal spell of choice for obvious reasons, and then Prismatic Ending out of the sideboard, which is very good against hate, like Ghost Vacuum, like Nihil Spellbomb, while also just being serviceable, killing off cheap creatures. So I love it for the flexibility. I'm a bit worried about the mana base. 23rd place, first Oops All Spells deck, and let's see what kind of version we're working with here. Looks like we are working with a version higher on Narcomoebas, lower on Poxwalkers. We still have the Jack-O-Lantern and Memory's Journey for built-in resiliency, and then we have all the way up to 4th Ess's Oracle out of the sideboard, which is kind of cool to see, and it makes the deck more resilient against hate after sideboard. Here comes Doomsday. Doomsday looks like the classic version of focusing only on the combo kill. Let's see if there's a sideboard pivot here. I'm sorry for instability when it comes to holding my mouse over the deck name here. I realize I haven't done a perfect job. It looks like we're comboing all the way through. I like that a lot. I think the main trend these days is to have the creatures. So if that's going to be the mindset of your opponent, you can get some free value points from your opponent having plows or pushes in their deck post sideboard. Here's Storm Highway with Reanimator. Looks like a fairly standard version, except I see Stifle and Emperor of Bones, so that's some pretty cool spice there. Emperor of Bones, kind of this card that is always, you know, going to be synergistic with your deck. Maybe it disrupts the opponent. Maybe it's just a serviceable 4/4 to get you over the finish line, backed up by Daze and Wasteland. We even see Mystic Sanctuary in this deck, so pretty... Oh, I just now realized, okay, this is a Yorion deck. So I've actually played 80-card Reanimator before, and I'm pretty excited to see it here, not going to lie. I don't think it hurts the deck that much. Biggest price you're paying is when your opponent is playing a super fast combo deck, you have fewer opening hands with Force, and when you simply just want to go turn 1 Entomb, turn 2 Reanimate, 1/2 Punch, you have fewer copies of that as well. So that's kind of the first page here on Melee. Pretty diverse field up until now. So as I said, I'll just be going through all the 9/2s or better. And in 26th place, we have more Painter. This version is playing the Agatha Soul Cauldron as a 2 of, with the Devourer, and then the Chaos Defiler for a grindy element. Sideboard is somewhat standard, except for the Leyline plus Helm of Obedience, which is something I haven't seen all that much. I think Untimely Malfunction. Let me just see here if I can... Yeah, so that's kind of this artifact removal spell that can also, you know, change the target of an opposing removal spell, and it can also hit in for lethal. So pretty cool to see. See if I can get back to that same page. Yeah, I guess I have to go to the next page here. So Painter, and then we have Reanimator. So this is actually somebody that I worked with leading up to the event. Matt has written about that in public, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus here. Super happy to see Matt do well here with Reanimator. Looks like a list that is taking a lot of pages out of what I suggested going into the tournament, especially having flexibility with your Entomb, having a single copy of Coffin Perch out of the sideboard, so you actually get to keep in a few copies of Entomb, maybe keep your Atraxa, and then have access to Coffin Perch and Atraxa. So it's, you know, if your opponent has Graveyard Hate in play, we still have, you know, access to to Coffin Purge to disrupt the opposing reanimation spells. If the coast is clear, we have the Atraxa, so it's not perfect, but it's a way to make more mileage out of your sideboard. Another copy of Forge. Let's just quickly check the mana base. Yeah, this mana base is a 17-land mana base with Blast Zone and City Traders. It's down to 3 Kozilek's Command and 3 Flesh Rakers, so this is trying to cut a few corners to fit some more cards. Those being 2 Paradox Engines and 1 or 2 Chrome Moxes. Oh, sorry, Mox Opals, obviously. Last deck, Mono Blue Aggro. So, yeah, I guess you can call decks whatever you want on Melee, but it's usually just, you know, leading to more confusion rather than smiles or laughs. So, yeah, this deck looks to be a... Wow, okay, this is a sick one. So, we're looking at... Is this Jewel? Yeah, this is Coveted Jewel. Okay, so this deck is trying to take a page out of the Vintage Decks book, except we just really don't have the same acceleration, you know, power, Soul Ring, Mana Vault, stuff like that. Mishra's Workshop in particular. But we do have Show and Tell to put Coveted Jewel into play, and if that works, then we can copy it with Phyrexian Metamorph, we can copy it with actual Copy Artifact, and then we're trying to draw our deck and cast an Emrakul, so pretty cool deck. I'm a bit worried about playing against the card Orcus Bowmaster when leaning on, you know, jewels. But the cool thing about Metamorph is you can actually copy an opposing Bowmasters and get rid of it kind of mid-combo even. So maybe this is awesome, and it looks kind of fun to play, I can't lie. So let's see, Transmute Artifact is a way to go and get, I guess, your Paradox Engine for inevitability. It's a way to go get Coveted Jewel. It's a way to get rid of the One Ring. Yeah, I mean, this looks awesome. Legacy version of Jewel. That's pretty amazing. So I think going over all these lists, first of all, a lot of cool innovation going on. Second of all, the diversity is pretty sweet here when you think about it. I haven't done the numbers or anything, but we're looking at a super healthy spread of Ancient Tomb decks, different combo decks, different Psychic Frog decks. Psychic Frog has been the talk of the town for a while. I do realize the deck, Reanimator, has a lot of targets on its back, and that can mitigate the strength of a deck and, you know, temporarily give the impression that the format is fine. But I also think it's just the natural way to respect a powerful deck, and the metagame has successfully succeeded to make sure the Reanimator is not just crushing everybody. So all in all, I love the picture of Legacy. All in all, I think it's going to be quite hard to build your sideboard in the weeks to come. I would definitely say that Null Rod is back on the menu for the time being. Wastelands continue to be awesome against these Ancient Tomb decks. And you have to respect Nadu, so maybe you need cards like Toxic Deluge, Grafdigger's Cage, Pithing Needle, to name the Nomad. But yeah, I have so many ideas right now. I'm not sure how to put it into words, but I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown here. I'm doing this in the middle of the night after having slept for some hours and having checked the standings. So, and once again, you know, this is a one-take video, so I'm gonna miss some stuff, but I enjoyed the authenticity of doing that, and I hope you guys do as well. Yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream on the weekend, both the rounds that I was covering and the rounds that my awesome co-workers were covering. And maybe you guys get to see me back on the mic soon. Let's see about that. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time.